Have you ever wondered how absolute power truly functions? Not from textbooks, dystopian films, or television adaptations, but in the reality we live in today. Our journey takes us to the heart of one of the most enigmatic nations of modern times. North Korea, officially known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Imagine a tiny strip of land squeezed between two colossal neighbors, China and Russia on one side, and the Pacific Ocean, with Japan and American military bases on the other. Despite its small size, covering just a few hours' drive across, this country presents a formidable challenge to the international community. It might seem that such a heavily sanctioned state has minimal chances of survival. Yet, against all odds, North Korea not only persists but has maintained remarkable stability for over 74 years under a single dynasty. Consider how astonishing it is that after the Soviet Union's disintegration in 69 years, the Kim family has continued to hold power with unwavering strength. How do they manage to retain control? Let's start with a shocking reality. Picture a shy, modest teenager attending an elite Swiss school, engaging in music and outdoor pursuits in the Alps, doted on by diplomats and wealthy students across Europe. He speaks several languages and is immersed in Western values of freedom and individualism. No one suspects that hidden behind this quiet facade is a future nuclear commander wielding a lethal arsenal. It's hard to imagine that this very boy would one day order the execution of his own uncle, proclaim himself supreme leader, and become the architect of one of the harshest regimes of the 21st century. Such a drastic transformation, Kim Jong-un's metamorphosis, is both shocking and chilling. His biography reads like a dark political thriller, a privileged childhood in the West, evolving into a ruthless dictator who antagonizes the entire Western world. Ironically, this development was likely a strategic move by his father, Kim Jong-il, who groomed him for leadership in a complex, globalized environment. But the true roots of North Korea's unique phenomenon extend well beyond this familiar narrative, delving into deeper, more intricate histories. Let's travel back to the 1950s when American bombers relentlessly ravaged Korea, turning its landscape into a lunar wasteland. To grasp the scale, imagine that over 200,000 tons of bombs fell on a population of 10 million, roughly 20 kilograms of explosive per person, including infants. General Curtis LeMay of the U.S. Air Force smugly reported that no target remained unscathed. Every building was destroyed. The Korean War began with an invasion from the north, supported by Stalin and Mao, who ordered their troops to attack the south in June of Na Tisicha Divatsat Pyatdesat. Initially, the North's forces overwhelmed the South, but the intervention of American forces and subsequent counterattacks drastically shifted the tide of the conflict, leading to a brutal, prolonged stalemate. In essence, North Korea's history, a nation forged through devastation, secrecy, and resilience, remains a complex puzzle. Its current stability, rooted in a mix of historical trauma and strategic control, continues to challenge the world's assumptions about its future. Following China's intervention, 3 years of brutal conflict brought the Korean peninsula to a near standstill, with the front line essentially returning to the original dividing point at the 8th parallel, where it remains today. For any sane politician, such an outcome would be acknowledged as a catastrophe. Yet, Kim Il-sung, master of political illusion, presents this deadlock as a glorious victory, transforming defeat and national tragedy into a triumph of spirit. Remarkably, the population believes this fabricated narrative. In a country cut off from external influence, devoid of alternative information, a new reality is crafted. Subsequently, reconstruction begins. With help from the Soviet Union and other socialist countries, devastated cities are rebuilt. Pyongyang rises from the ashes like a phoenix, symbolizing rebirth. Simultaneously, while physically restoring the nation, Kim Il-sung constructs the foundation of his ideological rule. He doesn't merely imitate Stalin, he elevates himself to a divine status. Wars leave behind destruction, but also create unique opportunities for manipulation. After the Korean War, a vast number of orphans remained, turning into a crucial resource for Kim Il-sung. He builds orphanages and special schools for children of revolutionaries, ostensibly acts of charity. However, these institutions become factories of absolute unreality. Children who lose their parents are indoctrinated. Your father is the great leader who feeds and shelters you, they are told. Graduates of the renowned Moningdo School often grow into security and military elites. Propaganda artwork from that era vividly depicts Kim Il-sung surrounded by children, embracing them with paternal affection. Interestingly, the founder's methods didn't emerge by chance. His parents were Christians, and his father was a school teacher from a family led by a school director. Kim Il-sung understood the power of religious devotion and crafted his own secular belief system. The uniqueness of the North Korean regime also lies in the ideology of Juche, developed by Kim Il-sung. This is not merely a political doctrine, but a comprehensive worldview shaping all aspects of society. Unlike Marxism-Leninism, Juche emphasizes national identity and self-reliance. Initially, Kim Il-sung adhered to Soviet-style socialism, but as Soviet influence waned and China's power grew, he needed his own ideological platform. Juche became a strategic tool, enabling North Korea to navigate pressures from neighboring superpowers. In the early 2000s, the ideology was further enriched by Songun, the military-first policy. Later, figures like Pak Jin integrated parallel development of nuclear weapons and the economy into the narrative. These ideological adaptations have allowed the regime to remain flexible, adjusting to changing circumstances while maintaining its core grip on power. Its remarkable resilience for what appeared to be a rigid dictatorship is rooted in this dynamic ideological evolution. Ultimately, the Korean War taught Kim Il-sung yet another vital lesson. In conflict, destruction opens avenues for deeper control and ideological reinforcement, ensuring his regime's endurance amid perpetual upheaval. Without reliable protection, a regime is doomed to fail. North Korea's leadership has long contemplated the use of nuclear weapons during various conflicts, with the specters of Hiroshima and Nagasaki constantly looming over the Korean peninsula, where atomic bombs once instantly claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. In such a perilous environment, what does a pragmatic leader do? Naturally, they pursue the development of their own nuclear umbrella for security. To this end, North Korean scientists have been sent abroad for specialized training, notably to the Soviet Union's Dubno Nuclear Research Center. During the 60s, Soviet assistance led to the construction of the first research reactor in Yongbyon. However, Moscow was reluctant to share the secrets of nuclear armament freely. After the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, when the world teetered on the brink of nuclear war, Soviet authorities recognized the danger of proliferation and tightened restrictions. This realization prompted Pyongyang to draw an important conclusion. Reliance on immediate allies cannot be absolute, The only true safeguard is developing independent deterrent capabilities, which ultimately spurred North Korea's race for nuclear weapons. This pursuit marked the beginning of unprecedented military mobilization. Over 10 years, the nation's military expenditures skyrocketed, reaching approximately 30% of the national budget, a staggering figure. A crucial instrument in consolidating the Kim regime's grip on power has been an unparalleled propaganda machine, unlike anything seen elsewhere in the modern world. The process of ideological indoctrination begins in early childhood, with young children in daycare playing roles that portray Americans as imperial villains. The very first words they learn to write include, "Thank you, Marshal Kim," embedding a deep reverence from an early age. The entire cityscape of Yongbyon is meticulously arranged to serve ideological ends. Portraits of the leaders are displayed prominently in every home, to be cleaned and polished regularly with special cloths. Loudspeakers installed throughout the streets broadcast patriotic songs alongside updates on regime achievements. Monuments and statues celebrating the nation's victories are visible everywhere, paying homage to the country's history and leadership. North Korean television further exemplifies this relentless propaganda. There are only a handful of channels, all state-controlled, with broadcasters speaking in an overly theatrical tone, as if each broadcast is a historic event. Curiously, the TVs distributed by the government are designed so that they cannot be turned off completely. Viewers can only mute or lower the brightness, ensuring the regime's messages seep into the subconscious even during sleep. By the 1990s, Kim Jong-il had become almost a religious figure revered by the population. However, the regime faced severe tests when the Soviet Union, the main supporter and protector, collapsed, and China shifted towards market reforms, reducing aid to Pyongyang. Compounding these challenges was the death of Kim Il-sung, after which his son Kim Jong-il inherited power. The transitional period brought catastrophe. A devastating famine swept the country, killing an estimated 300,000 to 3 million people from starvation. Western analysts predicted the regime's collapse within months, yet their forecasts proved mistaken. Myths about North Korea persist, such as claims that the starving eat grass or that officials summarily shoot dissenters from anti-aircraft guns. Tales that fuel a distorted image of life inside the isolated nation, where reality often diverges from the rumors. Reality, as is often the case, proved to be more complex and intriguing than initially appears. When famine struck, Kim Jong-un devised a paradoxical move by seeking humanitarian aid from the United States' main ideological adversary and from South Korea. Both agreed, as they viewed widespread suffering and the death of innocents as violations of their core values. Simultaneously, North Korea embarked on an unprecedented path, loosening economic controls and allowing uncontrolled markets to emerge spontaneously. People began trading anything that could generate income, including smuggling goods across the Chinese border. Interestingly, women became the primary entrepreneurs in this new economy. In the patriarchal Korean culture, men still officially worked at state enterprises, which often faced shortages of raw materials and unpaid wages. Meanwhile, their wives supported their families through small-scale trade, risking severe punishment. However, granting such vast economic freedom threatened to undermine the regime itself. Kim Jong-il found a clever solution. He announced a new policy, Songun, emphasizing the military first. This strategy served two purposes. It allowed the military, which was a formidable force despite the country's small population, approximately one-fifth of Russia's, to serve as a stabilizing pillar, and it strengthened the regime's grip through loyalty. North Korea's army, numbering around 5 times fewer than Russia's, was comparable in size to the Russian military and consisted of hungry, armed citizens, an undeniable threat to any regime. Moreover, Kim Jong-il lacked the personal authority his father once wielded, as he had never commanded troops himself. His previous influence was rooted in propaganda. To maintain control, he favored policies that ensured the military elite received better rations and privileges, further consolidating their loyalty. Controlling information became a cornerstone of the regime's survival. Officially, internet access was banned for ordinary citizens, replaced by the local Kwanmin network, which contained only ideologically vetted content. Mobile phones appeared in North Korea only in the early 2000s, and even now operate within a closed system, incapable of international calls. But the regime faced a growing threat from smuggled USB drives and DVDs filled with South Korean dramas and films, depicting a society with higher living standards and personal freedoms, images starkly contrasting with North Korea's reality. For many defectors, risking severe punishment for such broadcasts was a calculated gamble worth it. In recent years, authorities introduced harsh laws targeting ideological contamination. By 2023, the government implemented draconian measures, punishing South Korean slang and fashionable clothing with up to 15 years of forced labor, reflecting a paranoid fear of external influence and internal decay driven by foreign culture. Despite widespread suffering among the population, Kim Jong-un and his successor, Kim Jong-un, continued funneling colossal sums into the nuclear program. The regime's leaders seemed to follow a pattern seen in history, sacrificing the well-being of their people for the sake of nuclear deterrence, reminiscent of Muammar Gaddafi's fate in Libya. In the early 2000s, Kim's regime abandoned its pursuit of weapons of mass destruction in exchange for Western economic incentives. However, by 2011, when Libya's uprising ignited, North Korea's military aviation aided the rebels, ultimately leading to the dictator's overthrow and brutal murder. For dynasties like Kim's, nuclear arsenals are undeniably the ultimate safeguard of survival. The current leader, Kender, is not as recklessly inclined as to be the first to launch a nuclear strike at the United States. Such an attack would wipe his country out in mere minutes, yet simply possessing the capability to reach American territory acts as a potent deterrent. It compels Washington to think twice before intervening. Domestically, North Korea's nuclear program is portrayed as the regime's greatest achievement, proof of strength and sovereignty. Propaganda proclaims that small Kender has made the nation a formidable global power. By 2025, this rhetoric is reinforced by tangible military advancements. North Korea unveiled a new class of warships capable of carrying over 50 missiles of various types, including ballistic ones. Experts argue that any political regime can endure indefinitely if it relies on 3 firm pillars. The first pillar is popular support, maintained here through comprehensive propaganda. North Koreans are indoctrinated to believe they live in a fortified fortress surrounded by enemies, and that only wise leadership can protect them from destruction. This narrative is continually reinforced, exemplified in January of 2023, when a law was enacted criminalizing the use of South Korean words and expressions, with punishments nearing life imprisonment or execution. The second essential foundation is the loyalty of the military and party elites, who enjoy enormous privileges, luxurious apartments, vehicles, access to scarce goods, and permission to travel abroad. For them, betraying the regime would mean losing everything. The third pillar comprises influential economic circles, notably the class that emerged in the late 90s, high-ranking officials, military officers, and successful entrepreneurs. These entrepreneurs, including top managers of leading state enterprises and prosperous female traders, possess real US dollars and euros. Their affluence is secured by the Kim regime, which guarantees their well-being, and approximately 1% of North Korea's population lives at a middle-class level comparable to that in developed countries. They enjoy vacationing at resorts built under Kim's rule and have access to imported goods and technologies. Take North Korea's automotive industry as an example. It produces licensed copies of foreign models, with factory owners earning good incomes amid little competition. But what happens if borders fully open? Could their cars compete with South Korean brands like Hyundai or Kia? Or even with European and Japanese manufacturers? For the business elite, the correct answer hinges on the regime's stability. North Korea's economic survival depends on it. One illustrative example is the national airline, Air Koryo, often mocked in the West for operating an outdated Soviet-era aircraft fleet. However, domestically it functions as part of a vast empire, encompassing a taxi service, a network of fueling stations, a travel agency, and manufacturing plants for cigarettes and food products. This structure exemplifies a classic state-private partnership where a nominally government-owned enterprise essentially sustains certain elite clans, akin to a form of economic patronage. The ruling Kim family lives with regal extravagance. According to South Korean intelligence sources, the current leader maintains 33 residences across the country, 28 of which feature private railway stations. All these homes are fortified with security systems and interconnected through subterranean tunnels, which also include deep bunkers designed for wartime contingencies. Annually, around 1,000 North Koreans risk their lives attempting to escape. The journey to freedom is perilous. It begins with crossing the Chinese border, where defectors face the danger of being captured and forcibly returned. From there, their arduous route often leads through China into third countries, most frequently Thailand or Mongolia, where they seek asylum in South Korea. Adjusting to life in a new environment proves to be a profound challenge. Imagine someone who has never used the internet, never held a smartphone, and never seen a supermarket. For defectors, everyday experiences like bustling grocery stores or unrestricted movement become startling revelations, often leading to cultural shock. A notable story is that of Pak Imi, who fled from North Korea at the age of 13. In her memoirs, she vividly recalls her first night in Seoul, an illuminated city filled with endless billboards and streams of cars. She writes, "I couldn't believe people sleep with the lights on. We Koreans saved every candle at home." Such personal testimonies shape our understanding of life inside the world's most isolated country. In June of 2018, a historic meeting took place in Singapore between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. During this summit, Trump presented a specially prepared video urging North Korea to abandon nuclear weapons, promising to transform Pyongyang into a prosperous metropolis similar to Singapore or Shanghai. The proposal hinted that Kim could retain power akin to China's Communist Party or Japan's imperial family, but welcome Western investments and technologies. While tempting for many, Kim Jong-un politely declined. His reasoning was clear: he already enjoys a luxurious lifestyle, but his sole guarantee of control lies in nuclear arsenals. If borders opened to international business, his days and the entire dynasty would be over. It's essential to grasp that Kim Jong-un is not a naive, isolated dictator. Born in 1989, he witnessed the collapse of Eastern Europe's communist regimes and studied in Switzerland. His first-hand experience of Western life and access to genuine information distinguish him from most of his subjects. When he first assumed power, even U.S. President Barack Obama's administration attempted to establish unexpected channels of communication, exemplified by secret backdoor diplomacy. This complex portrait underscores how North Korea's leadership navigates a precarious balance, clinging to nuclear sovereignty for survival, while superficial engagement with the outside world remains carefully controlled and limited. It is well known that North Korea's leader has a keen interest in the NBA. Initially, there were plans to send basketball legend Michael Jordan to Pyongyang. However, he refused. Instead, the eccentric former champion Dennis Rodman agreed to go, making several visits to Kendar and playing in exhibition matches. This form of basketball diplomacy carried symbolic weight but did not advance diplomatic relations significantly, largely because Washington demanded an impossible price: complete disarmament and the relinquishment of nuclear weapons. By 2005, the situation on the Korean peninsula had reached a critical point. In January of the previous year, a historic rupture occurred when Kim Jong-il officially rejected the idea of peaceful reunification with South Korea. Subsequently, organizations dedicated to fostering unity were disbanded, and the famous Unification Monument in Pyongyang was dismantled by the Kendar leader. He proposed constitutionally recognizing the South as a rival state, while simultaneously intensifying cooperation with Russia. Since 2002, military ties between the two nations expanded, with North Korea supplying arms and even deploying troops in exchange for food, oil, resources, and economic incentives. One aspect that notably stands out is North Korea's cyber activity. Over the past decade, North Korean hackers have stolen cryptocurrencies worth over $6 billion. These funds are used to finance the country's nuclear program and support its sanctioned economy. Recently, Japan extended its trade restrictions against Kendar until 2027, citing ongoing missile tests and unresolved issues surrounding Japanese abductees as primary reasons. Remarkably, the Kim dynasty manages to sustain the country's technological isolation, despite the rapid pace of global technological development. The secret lies in the nature of the modern information society. As information circulates more freely worldwide, it becomes easier to filtrate and censor. North Korea employs a strategy of selective modernization. The ruling elite has access to contemporary technologies, smartphones, computers, software, while ordinary citizens are cut off from the global internet. The government creates simulacra of Western technologies, domestic search engines, social media platforms, operating systems, all under strict control. Kim Jong-un fully understands that in today's world, a country disconnected from the internet is doomed to fall behind technologically. To counter this, North Korea has adopted an alternative model. It creates isolated hubs of advanced technology where specialists in cybersecurity and programming are trained to a world-class level. These experts are then utilized for cyber espionage, cryptocurrency theft, and developing surveillance systems within the country. Essentially, the regime has turned the technological revolution to its advantage. In conclusion, despite its consistently poor ratings in global freedom, economic development, and quality of life, North Korea remains a vital puzzle piece in the international landscape. driven by a combination of strategic isolation and technological adaptation. North Korea remains a complex paradox, a tool of geopolitical leverage, yet a formidable authoritarian regime, asserting that even in the 21st century, dictatorship can fiercely resist the tides of globalization. From a power maintenance standpoint, the Kim dynasty operates with impeccable precision, having neutralized all internal rivals through strategic consolidation. They crafted a comprehensive ideology, erected an advanced nuclear shield, and cultivated a select class deeply invested in preserving the existing order. Their political approach echoes the famous dictum of Chinese reformist Deng Xiaoping: "Let some people get rich first," followed by the idealistic notion that ultimately everyone should prosper. In the context of a dictator's strategy, the second part becomes crucial: the relentless pursuit of universal wealth regardless of cost. It is vital to keep the elite in constant fear, convincing them that without the regime, they would swiftly lose everything, while offering the common people just enough to prevent hunger-induced uprisings. Yet, any attempt to improve their situation significantly could spark independent thinking and demands for freedom, threatening the regime's stability. The future of North Korea remains a subject of intense speculation among political scientists and foreign policy experts worldwide. Most envisage a scenario where the status quo endures, gradually liberalizing the economy in a manner akin to China's evolution. However, a key difference lies in leadership. Unlike China's Deng Xiaoping, who ruled with a proven revolutionary pedigree, the Kim dynasty cannot afford such luxury. Any misstep might accelerate the erosion of their grip on power. Some South Korean analysts propose a model of soft landing, suggesting that North Korea could gradually integrate into the global community through peaceful evolutionary change rather than abrupt collapse. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un might, in theory, become a Korean Gorbachev figure, if international guarantees of his safety and privileges can be convincingly provided. Ultimately, the Kim dynasty's endurance exemplifies a unique aspect of modern political longevity. It is a living laboratory demonstrating how a potent mix of ideology, fear, and absolute authority can preserve society against global trends. This phenomenon teaches us that authoritarian regimes may be far more resilient than typically assumed. Faced with the choice, simply cooperating with the system for minimal survival guarantees or risking everything, including one's life, for a chance at change, each individual must weigh their options carefully. These reflections open a window into the enduring and often underestimated strength of totalitarian power in our time.